My first look at the Hbada E3 had me walking away thinking it had the most comfortable footrest I had tested on an ergonomic chair. This is unique, as I haven't found a footrest on a chair that I've actually liked. But did the rest of the chair impress me the same way that the footrest did? I want to first take a look at the assembly process, keeping in mind that this is a $549 chair. Most chairs for this price range will have most of the chair assembled, and some chairs will come fully assembled. The E3 has a surprising amount of assembly, among the longest processes on any chair that I've tested. One red flag during assembly was the way that the base was comprised of 6 different parts.
Oh no.
Is that the base?
Yep.
Instead of one solid molded piece like we see on most products at this price range. This is usually seen on lower end chairs. This is the first time I've seen it for a chair that's priced over $500. With that said, the rest of the chair felt like a $500 chair. Nothing was super high end, but everything else was solid. The mesh is good quality, the pleather is soft, and the chair feels solid overall. The chair is substantial, and there's a lot going on, so it feels like you're getting $500 worth of chair from the first look.
If you need some other recommendations for new chairs, check out our office chair cheat sheet in the description where we rank a ton of different new office chairs.
Aside from the footrest, the headrest is my favorite thing about the E3. This isn't an area I typically focus on in these first impressions, but this one was noticeable for me right away. For starters, it's big. You don't have a tiny mesh headrest that guarantees you'll feel the hard edges. This one is large and has good quality mesh. The thing that really caught my attention though was the adjustment package. It has 4-dimensional adjustments. This allowed me to position it for relaxing and for upright use for things like tasking and intense gaming. This is not common on most headrests, let alone for one that's in the $500 price range. Having a solid headrest to pair with that footrest that we'll talk about shortly makes this chair a bit of a unicorn. The seat is where I usually focus my initial attention when testing a new chair. This is especially important on a mesh seat just because mesh seats really are a love it or hate it type of thing. The first thing that I noticed was the large waterfall front with no pad that would typically go behind the back of your legs. I love this design. Herman Miller started this trend with the revamp of the Aeron, and a lot of chairs are following suit. I'm glad to see that the E3 chose this path. The rest of the seat is pretty standard. It has good dimensions to not be forced to feel the edges, but the seat doesn't offer any flexibility, and I did find that it sits quite firm. It does have seat depth adjustment, but extending it all the way out opens the door to sitting on the back of that chair frame, so this might not be the best option for really tall people. Overall, time will tell, but I think it comes out of the gate favorably against other mesh seats in its price range. While the footrest continues to be on the top of my mind for this chair, I think Hbada would probably prefer that I focus on the backrest just because it's obvious that they spent the most time here, and this design is the first I have seen of its kind. It has 2 flaps, I guess. I'm not sure how else to describe them, but they kind of wrap around your waist and you can control how much of an angle they have. You can open them all the way up and they'll be flush with the rest of the back, or you can turn them all the way in and they will cup your waist, and then you can put them in between that range as well. I prefer to use them with the flaps completely open, but I can see people liking that hugging feeling that they do offer. The lumbar section also has depth adjustment, and the lumbar and upper back have separate height adjustments. Overall, this is the most adjustable backrest I've ever seen. In terms of comfort, it felt good on initial testing. The frame wasn't in the way, and I felt like the chair was supporting me from my lower back to my upper back. I think the side flaps will take some getting used to, but they could end up being comfortable in the long run. The recline is one area where we start to see chinks in the armor of the E3. Up until this point, this first look has been pretty positive, but the recline is not something that I enjoyed on my initial testing. The first thing that I noticed, you don't have a tension control system. We're seeing this design more and more, but it can be tough to get the correct balance, and there's always the danger of going too loose or too tight. Perfect example of this, the Hbada E3, because it's just way too loose, which means that I can only use this chair in 2 positions when I have it unlocked, which is either all the way up or all the way back. There's so little tension that you just get to the middle point and either fall back in the chair or you don't get far enough and you just fall forward. If you want to use the chair reclined, you need to use the tilt lock, and I'm not a tilt lock user. The recline range is good and the locking options are very well positioned. I just really wish there was a tension control option. The Recline is not my favorite design, but the armrest may be the one area that would make the E3 a potential deal breaker for me. The pads aren't bad, aside from from one aspect. They have some softness and they're massive. The one problem is that the back of the arm pad has a curved upward angle. We've seen this design before on the most recent Sihu chair that Robert reviewed. I'm not a fan. The positioning of the arm pad is the most likely problem, but because of where my elbow lands on the pad, I'm forced to use these curves and they feel awkward to me. These arms have a ton of adjustments though, and this is where we see the curved design come into play. They have the standard adjustments, height, width, depth, and angle, but they also have an upward tilt adjustment. This is for mobile phone or tablet use, which comes in handy when texting, gaming, or just watching content. The one downside with the adjustments, and potentially the biggest downside with this chair as a whole, is that the height adjustment range is really high. The arms just don't go low enough. I have no way to use these arms at my desk. I need to just put them over my surface and try to ignore them. This is a real bummer because one of the highlights of this chair is the adjustability. If they just increase the range on these arms to allow them to go lower, these arms would be great for the price point. I've mentioned it a few times, but we're finally to that point to take a look at the highlight of this chair for me, which is the footrest. And I know it sounds crazy to say, but this footrest is really good, especially when we consider the fact that I haven't found a good one yet. I think the biggest reason is because they're all so bad that I just generally consider them a waste of money and resources. Hbada didn't do anything crazy. They just made sure it was comfortable. The adjustment range allows you to get far enough away from the chair to properly support your legs without digging into your calves or ankles. And most importantly, they chose a curved design with a bit of foam and soft upholstery. This allows your legs to rest on the pads without feeling a hard plastic edge, which is a problem on almost every single footrest I've used, and Hbada has solved it with a simple rounded design. Overall, this footrest is not a world beater. It doesn't do anything super fancy, but it's comfortable for the chair, and it really adds an element of relaxation when you kick back to watch a film or hang out. Overall, I think there are a lot of positives with the Hbada E3, but it's not perfect. There are a couple things that may make it a deal breaker for me, but with that said, it's tough to find any chair that is perfect. So if you really value a footrest, a good headrest, and overall adjustability in a chair, then this could be a great fit.